Sean's not.
You're all right. I'll catch up.
It's fine. Good evening and welcome to the November 1st, 2022 regular council meeting. I'd like to call it to order.
Charlie Campbell.
Here.
Nicole Shook.
Here.
Bob Orsini.
Here.
John Barnard.
Here.
Sean Merriman.
Here.
Ryan Green.
Here.
Sharon Hendren.
Here.
For invocation tonight, we have Ms. Hendren.
Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful fall day and all the fall days we've had in the past. We do appreciate it. Please be with Walter Robb, who's on our zoning team, for the loss of his wife. Our sympathies go out to he and his family. Please bless the city workers, policemen, and all those who keep our city going. We could do nothing without all their service. Be with everyone in attendance tonight and help us be good stewards of yours. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please remain standing for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to keep Donnie Bernard as the mayor of Johnstown. Did I get a second?
Second.
Charlie Campbell.
Can we discuss?
Mm-hmm.
He's not mayor yet.
Well,
You
according
said
to the-
keep him as mayor, and I'm just saying he's not mayor
Well,
yet.
we can
He's
do-
just the president, he's not the mayor.
Well,
Okay?
according
That's
to
what-
our,
Well, I
According to
have
our
one
charter.
thing on this. I think this is key here. I think all of us can agree a lot's happened over the last year, and I think we all want to get back to work. Everybody wants to get to work. There's a lot of things that have suffered and taken a back seat over the last year. I don't think, so I know what happened last meeting with an inadvertent mayor situation may not have been ideal. I think we want to declare our mayor in a traditional manner with a vote. And I would argue we procedurally go back through, we make a motion to reconsider, and then we make a motion for a mayor, and I would put my support behind Donnie at that point.
okay.
And then
Following what the
everything
charter
is.
said, So,
I agree, but at that point, I think procedurally, we're doing everything clear and concise. There's not an inadvertent mayor. I don't think Donnie would want to be mayor that way. And I think we have a vote, and we do things correctly, and we get back to work.
So I'll make the motion.
Oh, we got a motion on the table. We got it clear.
So there's a motion on the table.
so rescind that, I'll rescind that motion,
Withdraw.
and I'll make a new motion as Donnie Bernard be appointed mayor.
Well,
Oh, sorry, you have to
wait,
rescind,
I'd like to
sorry.
make a motion that we reconsider the vote from last week on the presidency for council that elected me.
So you're reconsidering the vote for president of council.
Correct.
For last week, yes.
Correct.
Okay. Just gonna revote.
Do we need a second on that, or can we just go forward?
A second.
I'll second.
You were the first.
Yes.
1 and 2.
Okay. So a yes vote means that you would remain,
No, he would be removed as
Removed.
council president.
Yes.
I want to just clarify, so everybody knows how they're voting. Yes vote is to remove
Yes.
Yes.
president. Okay. Everybody got it?
Yes.
All right. Charlie Campbell.
Yes.
Nicole Shook.
Yes.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
John Barnard.
Yes.
Sean Merriman.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
No.
All right. Motion passed, so we have no president at the moment.
Now can I make the motion?
Yes.
Great, okay. I make the motion, put Donnie Bernard, appoint Donnie Bernard as mayor.
Second.
Thank you.
Nicole Shook.
Yes.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
John Barnard.
Yes.
John Merriman.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
No.
Charlie Campbell.
Yes.
We have a mayor.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Do we want to consider president at this point, or do we want to go along with other business and then meet up at the end for further discussion on it?
I think we, as I said, in the sense of let's get back to work here, let's do it now and get that done so we can get back rolling again.
I agree. I think this keep moving until we get the people in place where you need to be in place.
Who are the interested parties in being president of council?
Me?
Anyone else?
I'll make a motion for John Merriman.
I'll second.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
John Barnard,
Yes.
John Merriman,
Yes.
Brian Green,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
Charlie Campbell,
Yes.
Nicole Shook.
Yes.
So we are at full strength now. We're back to normal.
Yes, I'd like to note that we also have the acting president, which would automatically be Sharon, because she's our longest consecutive serving member.
Yes.
And youngest member on
That's
council.
right, Sean, don't forget that.
Okay, let's move on to action on the minutes. We're going to do them as a block. There's 3 sessions. We had a,
I don't want to do them as a block.
You wanna do them individually?
I wasn't at one.
okay, let's do them individually then. We'll start with the October 4th, 2022 special meeting. Can I get a motion
I'll
that we
make a
accept?
motion to approve as written.
Second.
John Merriman,
Yes.
Brian Green,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
Charlie Campbell,
Yes.
Nicole Shook,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
John Barnard.
Yes. The next item is the October 4th, 2022 regular council session.
But he can put the other two in a block. If you want.
Can I get a motion on this one? Or yes, a motion on it.
You want to do the other two as a block, Bob?
The other ones are fine, yeah. This-
Okay.
Can we do the other two as a
Okay.
block, please? I'll make a motion to do the other ones as written in a block. October 4th, October 17th.
I'll second.
John Merriman,
Yes.
Brian Green,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
Charlie Campbell,
Yes.
Nicole Shook,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
Abstain. I messed you up.
John
I
Barnard.
wasn't at this one.
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, next item on the agenda is citizen comments on matters not on the agenda. If you could please hold it to 3 minutes, please. Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to add her at the end under other
Are you,
business?
are you coming? We're
Yes.
gonna do you as other business.
Yep. We're going to give you a lot more time.
Sorry.
Okay. So no one tonight. We can go ahead and move forward to council committee reports. The first is planning and zoning. They met on 10/25. The next is November 9th, a Wednesday, because of the election on the 8th. Ryan, if you could fill us in on this?
Yeah, so we met, Sean can fill you in a little bit better.
Sure.
We didn't do a whole lot.
Yeah, there was 2 applications for this particular zoning meeting. One was on the table, another one was new. It was a conditional use for transient business in the downtown area. One specifically was the 10 West Pratt Street. That motion was made and carried, and so that conditional use was granted. The second one was then again tabled, but it was tabled by the applicant's request rather than the board's request. So the 60-day window, as far as that kind of a technicality where it automatically takes place, was no longer necessary. So we have a little bit more time to work through the application with the applicant. I believe the request is that he supplies more information to the board, which at that meeting, I believe he gave some more information, but maybe it was going to be necessary. Other than that, it was really only 2 action items.
Expertly explained, I think it's a bit of a sensitive topic that happened, so I wanted the official staff word on that. But feel free to come to the next meeting, should be interesting.
Safety and Service met today. Their next meeting is December 6th. John, you want to give us an update?
So we had a very long agenda and didn't get through all of it. We tabled more than half. There was a motion passed with the parking spots on West Pratt and now East Pratt and Main. Do you want to reiterate your entire motion for everybody, Bob?
It's going to be difficult to follow without a map, so I recommend going and listening to those minutes if you want the details. I'll try to sum it up as best I can with landmarks. So the recommendation was to add 3 or 4 parking spots depending on the physical dimensions that are required by ordinance. I believe it will be 4, and that will be added to the north side of West Pratt Street, runs along the insurance building there, faces Main Street, and runs along the left side of the street between the church and the buildings on Main there. We're gonna add 1 spot in front of, around the HER building there. It's gonna be in addition to what's there on South Main Street. That's gonna be on the south end of that parking strip when you first cross over Pratt Street. There's gonna be an additional spot there. On East Pratt Street, which is across from Posties, there is going to be 1 spot to the west of the new garage door entrance. And there's going to be 1 spot to the east of the new garage door space. So we started out with 5, we removed some, and we ended up putting back 4 or 5. We put back 7. So we're netting 2 additional parking spaces in the downtown area and trying to accommodate the business owners and property owners within the space.
And then we're gonna add in other business tonight. One of our action items that we skipped over, which is gonna be our action item that was 7, which would be discussing the food truck ordinance, which we have somebody here that would like to talk about it later. And I believe when we do that, Sean will bring up the ordinance so that if anybody's not familiar with it, they could read it.
Thank you both. The finance, we updated last time. We have a meeting coming up on November 15th. We will be meeting, Sean and I will be meeting again this Thursday. believe Charlie will be coming, and others were invited to be working on the budget. We're trying to get the budget prepared to go to finance at this point. Without the finance director, we have to prepare the budget, so we're trying to move it along to finance so it can get to council so we can approve it for December 31st. The events committee met 10/27/22.
We had a great meeting. Ben was there, so was Rusty. I think we're going to have a great 4th of July. Ben had a lot of great ideas, and hopefully downtown Johnstown can help with some of their events.
I think Ben wanted to speak also on this.
Oh, that's why I didn't see
Keep
it.
it to the 3-minute mark there.
Yeah, Sharon summed up a lot of those points. Wanted to call out, we have set at this point Saturday, July 1st as a day for fireworks. So it will be on an offset night as Red, White, and Boom, so hopefully we'll have a lot of similar type of folks showing up on that evening as well. We are looking at a bigger show with the budget that we have, other types of entertainment, family-type entertainment to bring down to that space, a partnership with Downtown Johnstown, as Sharon alluded to, sponsorships that we're working with the schools with as well, waiting on some feedback from the schools. And then the same, if not maybe a different kind of lineup of food trucks, but in the same general location. So any feedback that anybody hears about last year's events, you want to pass it on, please pass it on to us. A couple of things that I wanted to bring up, not fireworks related, but about events committee that we talked about and wanted to gather some feedback from council on. One of which is wanting to expand the scope of the events committee beyond just fireworks. That was the original intent. Fireworks was the quickest thing to get after, but a spring cleanup with partnership with Downtown Johnstown is something that we were talking about. Downtown Johnstown focuses mainly in the downtown space, obviously by name. I think it would be nice if the events committee could kind of incorporate with them, working to generate other volunteers in other areas throughout town, be it the bike path or down along the riverscape, stuff like that. So if there's comfortability with council doing that, I don't know if you wanted to talk about it, if you wanted to make a decision tonight, yes or no, if you wanted to get back to us and let us know. We obviously have some time until next year to do that, but that would be one of the things that we would want to do. The second maybe is a little bit more time sensitive, and that is, I don't know how many people remember the city used to have a mobile mammography unit come to town at least once a year. That hasn't happened for several years at this point. I think COVID had a big part of that. I made a call just to see if it was still something that was offered, because I think we've partnered with LMH as well as OSU and maybe one or two other hospitals. But I wanted to get some feedback tonight from council if there was comfortability or an interest in wanting the events committee to take that on as an annual piece that is in our agenda to set that up on behalf of the city. Because for me, I think it's an important thing to do, an important aspect to bring to the community, so.
What was the feedback, or what was the participation level on that in the past when we did have that here?
Now, every time that I asked about it, I think that, I believe all the spots were filled.
Okay.
Every time. So I think there is probably at least a desire and a need at one visit, if not multiple, depending on how you space those out. But I've only made one call to OSU at this point. It is something they still do. They're booking into Q1, Q2 of next year, so it wouldn't be immediate. I think if we wanted more opportunities in town to have that provided here, I think we had it in the parking lot. There are other hospitals we can ask to help provide that as well.
Well, it cost us nothing, correct?
Cost us nothing.
I think it's
just something that comes through, it's billed to typical insurance, as I understand it.
Well, my thought is, anything that the events committee would want to do to provide services or benefit to the folks of Johnstown, by all means explore it, without knowing nothing of the budgetary constraints. Moving forward, I think we've discussed in finance that at some point, we want it to be clear what the budget would be for the events committee. And then at that point, whatever fits into your budget would be at your discretion.
Absolutely.
The only thing I would ask for is consistency. So we do things at similar times of year so that people get used to it, and the needs and wants of the people of Johnstown are going to continue to grow. So the sooner you get started on some of these things, the better off they'll be at the end. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time and effort.
And currently, the only budgeted item we have is the fireworks at this point, which we've talked through a little bit in finance, obviously some more tweaking. We really won't have to do anything from a finance standpoint and that until next year, but we have solidified within events committee that we are going to go with Hamburg. And we're working around the same budget at this point until we truly understand what the budget is going to be for next year.
My hope is to come out of finance committee through council in the next few years to get that really refined so that the departments, the divisions, the committees will have a clear vision of what's available to them and allow them to maximize it independently of council for all the individual details.
And in all honesty, that's the point of exploring the sponsorship piece with the fireworks, is to try and make it self-sufficient in that respect. If not, take it out from the umbrella of the city and make it its own entity in some respect, in some way, shape, or form. So 5-year plan, 3-year plan down the road, but at this point, absolutely, the idea is to make it self-sufficient financially without having it be a part of the budget of the city, so.
Awesome.
Outstanding.
Okay.
So it sounds like mobile
Absolutely.
mammography, we're good to move forward with that, and we can continue to keep everybody updated on the timing for that.
Just coordinate with, Rusty and the city to make sure we don't have, overlapping events. Other than that,
Perfect. Last time I wanted to bring up, and I asked Teresa about it earlier, I don't know how many know about the headstone replacement for Oliver Bigelow. Has anybody heard about that? Know about
Vaguely.
that?
That's
I
something council's
do.
been working on for a while at least.
They did it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Not yet, no.
Oh.
So I asked Teresa about it because I hadn't heard anything about it. It sounds as if the stone is ordered, it's in hand, base needs to be poured, then stone needs to be installed. It sounds like maybe there's a 2-week window potentially with what could happen with replacing that at this point. My question is, because what was talked about before there were supply chain issues with getting that, is it was discussed to have some kind of event around putting that back in celebration of obviously what Oliver Bigelow has done for the existence of the community. Is there a desire to have something like that, like an event for the installation of that headstone, or is it just putting it back in there to make sure it's back in there and we can let the public know?
What are your thoughts on this, Sharon, since this was your, more about it?
Well, when you talk about an event, will it be this winter? Winter, put it off till spring or next year or what?
I think that's the conversation, is do you want to put it off to spring or have it a part of the 4th of July, have it within the next 2-3 weeks and make it something that happens
sounds
in the winter just for the sake of getting the stone in?
That would be very good. We had an event there one year. You were there, Sean. Yes.
You want to make it part of Springfest?
You can make part of Spring Fest.
That wouldn't be good, not during Springfest. But I think it's a good idea. We'll talk about it. I think it's a great idea.
Obviously, you don't have to make a decision tonight, but just know that The materials are there, and I think they're working on direction from the previous council that it could go in the next 2 weeks. So if there was a desire to have it at a different time of year, other than as soon as possible, there probably just needs to be a conveyance of that information.
Could we have it installed now but do a ceremony later? I mean,
Does that impact?
Yes,
the
I
events?
would say let them
Sounds
go
like
ahead and do it.
So we currently have the stone, the pad just needs to be poured.
It sounds as if the stone is in hand. I don't know if
Has
it's
the
engraved.
stone. He has
Where's the stone at right now? Next door.
Adamson Monument.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure the safekeeping of it wasn't sitting in a garage
Oh,
somewhere.
do you mean the
Yeah.
The old
current
stone.
stone? Old
Talking
stone.
the old stone?
Either, yes.
The new stone that is yet to be carved is being done by Adamson Monument.
Okay.
The existing headstone was badly cracked.
Okay,
I believe that the service department picked it up. I don't know which garage it's in, but it's
Okay.
in our possession.
and so it is currently done, and it is sitting over at Adams, or he is
not
still
done.
yet to?
Carve it,
Finish it.
carve it.
They had a
Yeah.
lot of supply issues,
Okay.
like everyone else, getting the stone from the quarry.
Okay.
Um,
And have we yet,
He has it now.
have we poured the pad at the cemetery for this?
I just stopped by today. It's not.
Okay,
So Ben, your question is, do we have it installed and the question is, do we have it installed an hour later in the ceremony to coordinate or to be a different time?
Yeah. How do you want to execute the installation?
I like the idea of getting it down and then having the ceremony later so we can do it appropriately, an appropriate ceremony instead of trying to rush something right now. Is my thought. I mean, what everybody else thinks.
I would put it up if you want to, we can run it through events committee and see how we can help support that or generate
Okay.
interest and maybe involve downtown Johnstown and the American Legion, which again, another one of those aspects of the events committee that I was hoping to incorporate to the total scope. So if council has desire and wants to do that, I can bring that up at our December meeting for the events.
I would like to, yeah.
That
and
sounds
then
good.
concrete being poured, we are running into a window. If there is a desire to pour that pad now, we would need to instruct. This is one of the few this is the only city cemetery that I'm aware of. Green Hill is managed by Monroe Township. I believe this one is in the city and is within our realm of maintenance, so I'm assuming we would need to pour the pad for that. Is there a desire to pour it before winter or no?
Adamson is gonna pour it.
He's gonna pour it?
They have to, he's gonna dig the old one out
Okay,
in the next week, he thought,
okay.
and then pour a new one. And then while that's setting.
Perfect.
And he has concrete blankets, he said if the weather should turn, but he's
Sure.
hoping it'll set.
Okay.
He can
Okay.
get this done.
Great, you guys are already on it. Just
Okay.
let you do your thing.
Great.
So we'll take that back to the events committee. Anything else for events committee, certainly let us know, but we're working what we can to bring everybody together.
Okay. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
The next is the tree commission. They met last Tuesday. A lot of work was done on the tree ordinance. We're working with Teresa and Louis Main on that, and we hope to bring that back up for a vote and then send it to council to have it put back in. There were some changes that need to be made. We're planning Arbor Day for next year. I believe that will be in April, I think the date was. There is an opening on tree commission, so if anyone here is interested in becoming a member of the tree commission, you are more than welcome to apply for it. The rules, we're working on scheduling a meeting, it looks like, what, November 16th, I think?
So 16th at noon was the last, so
Yeah,
afternoon.
I can do the afternoon, I just gotta get out.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
good with the
So it
afternoon,
looks like
so let's do
the
it.
16th afternoon.
Do you want like 3 o'clock? 2 o'clock?
How much time do we need?
Probably an hour for the first
Yeah,
one.
probably about an hour.
All right, so either one of those works for me.
Yeah,
Okay.
2 o'clock then?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock?
Yep.
Okay, and the Park and Rec, the next meeting is to be decided, so hopefully we can get that done soon. Next on the agenda is Director Reports, Service, Water, Wastewater, and Street. Mr. Liggett.
Yes, and.
Oh, I'm sorry, before I do that, we missed an item on the agenda, and the council received a thank you note from a private citizen, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, "Dear City Council members, we want to thank you for continuing prayer and the pledge to our flag before each meeting. Also, thank you for praying for the city workers. This is all noticed and appreciated. Without Jesus, we are powerless. Thank you for all of your time and effort put into making our home a wonderful place." So we thank whoever sent that. And now, Mr. Liggett, sorry.
All righty, I'm gonna go through the 3 departments, and then I'm gonna catch council up on some city projects that are going on. So first, we'll go through the water Water Department. Highlights, I'll just hit the highlights here is, as you all know, we're running an aquifer study, which I'm gonna get into a little bit later, but before that could start, we found that one of the test wells that we were gonna pump out of was in severe need of screen cleaning, so that has been completed. And also, the water plant operators are working on a lead mapping plan for the Ohio EPA. Now, when you start talking about lead and lead piping, of course, that's a huge concern, but Johnstown is in very good shape as far as over the years, we've removed a lot of our old lead and lead piping. As soon as that mapping is complete, I will forward that on to the city council. And the last thing I want to talk about, water, is on our production. On the last page, you can see the last 2 months, we've leveled out on our production, which is a good thing for us, as we had broke records every month until the last 2 months, and we've been very similar in our pumping the last 2 months. Going to move on to the wastewater department. All of our plant efficiency charts were again at 98, 99% removals of DOD spent solids, so all is working well there. Pressing of solids down to sewer plant, 884,000 gallons was pressed. And there's some pictures here of digester cleaning. Every other year, we have to drain the digesters of their contents and clean and repair all diffusers and headers down there, which of course keep the bacteria alive and moving. I'm gonna jump now into the street department. Number of items there. Up at 320 North Main, we got a call, the ADA walks up there were broken up and in disrepair, so you'll see later in the pictures here that we did get out, got those two replaced, and so those are repaired and taken care of. We've got the veteran banners along Main Street in West Coshocton up and in place, so that's good. The parking lot up here at the municipal, we got that striped and completed. Fire hydrant had to be replaced at 539 East Coshocton. And I put a star down here. It says under park maintenance, but it's tree trimming. You will see our crews out in the developments, because as we get ready into snowplow season, we haven't trimmed a lot of those trees close to the curb line. And we get a lot of damage to the trucks and the covers on the trucks when we're trying to plow. So they were going to do some trimming along there to, A, prevent that damage to the tree and limbs being broke, and damage to the trucks. And again, on the last page here, you see the two ADA sidewalks were replaced. Now I want to jump into a little bit of our projects. I want to bring you up to date on the water tower. The new water tower is complete and ready to fill, with the exception of, we have to get the SCADA system, which will tell the pumps when to turn on and turn off. Been delayed multiple times, supply chain issues, which we all hear. We're hoping to have those in by mid-November, delivered that is, and then installed very shortly after that. After that, we've worked out a schedule. We'll be pumping around the clock for between 48 to 72 hours to make sure we get both towers filled. Then the new tower will have to be isolated while it disinfects, and we do some bacteria testing, and then we'll be ready to go online. So my hope is by mid-December, the new tower will be online. Also staying in line with the water department.
Jack, real quick on that. As far
Yes.
from a budgetary standpoint, is there an advantage to, one, is the budget, is the appropriations there to complete that project as you stated?
Yes, that money was bonded, and actually, it's probably 80% paid out.
That's it. That takes care of the rest of the questions.
Okay. Sean, I know you've been going over the numbers more closely, but I think Phoenix Fabricators, I believe that's probably 80.
I believe so, yeah. I can
80%
pull
paid out.
I can pull the items on Phoenix. Phoenix has been.
It's not fair. I mean, the general concept that I'm thinking is, if timing can be leveraged to our advantage from a budgetary standpoint, let's just keep an eye to that. But it sounds like this is not something that's gonna matter if it's now or February.
Financing is in place and we're a long way towards this project being completed. Matter of fact, the SCADA system the controlled pumps would have been in last month, this tower would have been completed at this point.
Very good.
The other thing on water I want to talk about is the aquifer study. It actually started today. And on this, we're testing the upper aquifer. We think we're pulling the max we can out of the 2 lower aquifers. So this is a test for the upper aquifer to see what our maximum withdrawal at our current wellfield site can be. So this test, we're running 650 gallons a minute out, and we have to run it for a continuous 72 hours. And then the hydrologist will make their computations based on drawdown and flow. And then we'll know. Now, why is this important? We're currently looking at a 2 MGD upgrade. We've got an existing 1 million, looking at a 2 MGD upgrade. If there's only another 500,000 gallons available down there, would it make sense to go ahead and go to 2.5 million instead of, because if you build it now while all the contractors, everybody's there, it's cheaper than coming in later and building a 500,000 gallon expansion later, cost-wise. So this will give us information on which way we want to go with finalizing the size of the new water plant. I'm going to switch over to the wastewater plant. The stream study has been completed that was required by the EPA before we can upsize the wastewater plant to know what our discharge limits need to be to Raccoon Creek. So that is completed. All the samples are taken. Now the firm, the environmental firm that is running that, they said they'll need about 30 days to get to completion. We're trying to push them. They said 30 to 60, so I'm being optimistic. But we should have that information soon. Soon being the next 30 to 60 days.
Can that report have an impact on what we pump out of the ground? Because,
Out
water
and
in it is equal.
Water in, water out.
Right.
What it really impacts is what our limits will be of what we can discharge into the stream. So based on how the life and health of the stream, if it's in good condition, our permit limits will be probably like they are now. If they say, no, we're worried about that additional load going in, we will have to add additional treatment to the wastewater plant to purify it even farther to go in. So it's not an in versus out as much as what type of equipment will we have to install
For treatment.
for treatment.
Okay.
So it's key in what we have to do for design. So that's why the wastewater design is a little bit farther behind than the water design, because we have to wait on this information. Also, this Friday, we are meeting with a group on innovative technology, because one of the problems we have at the wastewater facility is space and room. And we all know how expensive ground is right now. This innovative technology that we'll be looking at, I've got the engineers and myself and the company rep are meeting. We can almost double our size at the current site with this new type of equipment and technology, and use the existing tanks that we have instead of buying more ground for additional tanks. So it's going to be very interesting. Of course, new technology, price goes along with this, but when you look at possibly being able to treat 4 million gallons a day at the build out at the current site versus 2.4 million, you're almost doubling the size of the plant at the same footprint. So I will bring you up to date on that. The East Jersey project, our contractors have stopped working the last 2 weeks. I've got calls in to find out why. I did get an email today, again, equipment and material. And we ran into what possibly will be a change order at the lowering of the 12-inch water main at Casson Street. So I'm working on those numbers right now, seeing what we can take out, what we got to put back in, see if I can get this to a zero cost on this change instead of it's looking like right now we're short about $25,000 again. I'm going to look to see what we can do, see if we can remove some items and balance this out. The last thing, and I know I've been going on, I wanted to bring up was our Ohio Public Works project. This is just a very short breakdown, which I meant to get to you a little earlier.
I got two. I got Donnie.
Go ahead and get Donnie's then. And this gives you 3 of the 4 scenarios. Sean, you already have that?
I got a digital copy.
Okay. Council asked me to do an investigation of what it would take to go to full depth reclamation on the whole street, partial street. And so here are your numbers. Now, as you recall, the initial Ohio Public Works, we broke it down just to look at East Douglas. We weren't gonna do the mill and fill on the other streets. It looked like it was gonna be, what, around $150,000, $180,000 just to do that project. To do the full depth reclamation from Main Street to William Street, you see the very top one there, we're looking at $650,000. The hybrid, it says full depth reclamation of West Douglas, just from South Oregon to Williams, and then just mill and fill from Oregon to Maine, you're looking at $494. And then, let's see, what's the last one here? Full depth reclamation of West Douglas Street from South Oregon to Williams. And this just includes the gutter, sidewalk, and stormwater improvements is $372. So where we're at is, as we talked in the last meeting, to get the application in, which is due, I think, November 10th, the engineers need to know sooner than later. This is totally up to council. Do you want to move forward with the original, which was not a full depth reclamation, just spot repair on the road, or any one of these 3 options in front of you?
What was our funding going to be with these, with the first project?
Split, yeah.
26% of that was going to be, which I think was roughly $89,000, was going to be village funded. And then the other, what was it, Sean, about $250,000 was, you could either ask for all grant or break it up into so much grant and so much 0% interest loan. Knowing that the more 0% interest loan you put in, a little more favorably they look at it, because they get a return on the money and they can relend it. On any of these projects, to get your fullest run of points, you would want to spend 26% of our money to get because that's, I guess, the term skin in the game. That's where Johnstown is committing at least some of it. So, and again, like I said, I know you folks have been working very hard on the budget. I don't know where we stand at this point, whether we can do any of these projects, part of these projects.
I'd like to have a discussion on this right now if we could. Anyone down here wants to discuss this first, your input on this?
So obviously, you don't want to put Band-Aids on a problem. I know the major problem, there's obviously that massive pothole we have down there. There's stormwater runoff is a massive problem that runs down through there. So I think that was the goal, to at least fix that area. Mill and fill, I don't think anybody is extremely excited about. There's a claim that you can get, 10 years out of it? But if
Yeah,
you don't have,
7 to 10 years, and we would look very closely at the spot repair,
Yeah.
we would proof roll, find soft spots. But it's nothing compared to what you do in this full depth reclamation.
Right.
That's why the cost is so different.
and if you don't mitigate the stormwater runoff, then it's less, because you have the
Yes.
ice and the freezing and
In
thawing and
any of
everything
the
like that.
options, there was stormwater mitigation was going to happen in any
Right.
and all of the options.
So either option, we do, any of the options, stormwater's taken care of. It's not going to be an
Yes,
issue
right,
anymore.
fix the stormwater.
Okay. Sean, do you have anything?
As with any project, I'll always make a recommendation that we identify the funding that would need to take place and where you're gonna pull that from before we make a motion to do a project. And that's a challenge right now.
We're on a timeline, aren't we? We're on a
Yes,
crunch for
it's-
November.
it's-
We're on a crunch for November 10th.
And again.
To make a decision.
I mean, there is no, you authorized a resolution for the manager to go into contract for the engineers to submit an application. You don't have to submit an application. I mean, we can just not do it, or we can go, and I know money's tight, so I say option one. I know it's mill and fill, but if we pay close attention to where we have soft spots and work on that, the big key is to fix the storm sewer. Get that storm water out of there, the road will hold up longer. Our other alternative is just a whole lot of patching, and if you've been on that road, as with so many of our roads, there's a lot of a problem. But so the least I think you would hit is the original option, which I think when we subtracted everything out, we're around $180,000. 26% of that would be from Johnstown, and the rest of it, you could ask for 100% grant. John, do you have that original?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
Now, the original for the whole 345,000, which mill and filled a couple other roads, was 89,000. So obviously, 26% of 180,000 is not going to be
That's gonna be
89,000.
47.
I think I remember last meeting, I ran next door and printed off 7 copies and brought them back. I don't want to do the same, but
Well, I think while he's looking for that, we can talk about what are the general thoughts on a repair versus replace? And repair has left several options.
I want to talk about that in our other business, but it's fine that we do it now.
Well, I think obviously you have a construction site there that the residents have had to deal with for a while. You have water coming into their yard, impacting their properties. You have the parents who pick up their kids, drive through that area, football game traffic, sports traffic, things like that,
It's
so.
gonna be a highly utilized road in the community.
Yeah, that they've had to deal with for a while now, so
I do want to stress, the 1 yard that sits lower than the road and the water ponds, there's really not much we're going to be able to do with that.
Okay.
Because you'd have to go into private property, which we don't do, and try to do some tiling. Now, we can make in our drops a place available for them to attach. I mean, I have no problem doing that. I just want to make that clear.
I mean, if-
I didn't want to give the conception that we're going to make that problem go away.
If we did half the street, our 26% would be 96,000, so it'd be like a $10,000 increase. And then
Well, hold on, no, the 89 was based upon the full project. That
Right.
project is cut way back. So
Right.
we're looking at like 47, 50,000-ish.
What he was saying is based off the full he's saying that if we did your bottom option, which I think is called Half Street, we're still doing a full depth reformation of West Douglas from South Oregon and Williams. You have new curb and gutter sidewalks and miscellaneous stormwater improvements to the area without mill and filling the rest of it, because that's your next option up. From our original scope, if Sean pulls whatever we had up there where we were mill and filling other roads, we're only at a $10,000 price increase.
Yes, right, but we're taking the other
But if-
roads out of
Yes.
the conversation. All right, yep, we're on the
So
same page.
if we did that and asked for 100% grants, which I know Jack says it's not going to help us.
No, you can ask, I think you can ask for 100% grant, but you won't receive any points. That's on a grading scale.
And they don't
Now, wait a
come,
minute, wait, do you mean after the 26%?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, I thought you meant just
no,
Oh, yeah.
asking for 100%.
the 26%. And I,
74-26.
and I know, I read in the Ohio State Registry the other day that there are more monies coming for roads.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps our case in this or not, but
It could. The only other cost, so I'll make this other recommendation, that there is an engineering cost that goes into this that is not part of this mathematical equation. So if there is a desire to do it right, engineer it that way first, and then that way you don't have to pay for the correct way and then also the mill and fill way. That's just my recommendation. Because you're gonna spend engineering one way or the other. If you don't get it and you were gonna do the mill and fill, and then you come back later and you do it the right way, then you've wasted the engineering that you just spent to do the mill and fill and a little bit of storm inlets and everything else, so.
since this is going to fall into next year, I'm very confident we have the money to be able to do this, the 26%. I mean, we're gonna
We're looking
look,
at 96,000.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
looking at 96,960.
Yeah, I put 97.
that we can put into CIP.
I'll let you talk to Kathy, because before I came in today, she had a very animated conversation, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to go that, I mean, my personal thought is we go that avenue, and if we find out anything this week with the budget,
Sure, we can always pull back.
Yeah, once we submit for the grant, and we're not obligated, are we?
No, but you would not want to be awarded, so if you decide you want to pull back, let me know, I would get
we
the word out
will,
there.
we will know by, I mean, they're not gonna decide the grant till next year, are they?
Excuse me?
When will they decide on,
We will know, the first week of July.
Yeah,
of next
so we
year?
have plenty
Oh,
of
so we have plenty of time to pull
Plenty
back, okay.
So we could submit,
Do you want
the
to?
submittal of it
Street,
would
though.
require some
Yeah.
type of design from Prime.
Yeah, yes, what we will tell them in the application is that it will be designed before awarded.
Right.
So let's design the whole street,
The full for the whole
Right.
and then just do half the street.
and make it a multi-phase project.
So design the whole street.
Yep.
Design,
For full depth or?
Full depth.
Full depth.
or half of it, or do the hybrid design.
You want
We
to, you
were
want to
saying
design
do
for
the
your best
design, design for the full street,
And then only.
Yeah.
and then only apply
West-
for the half street.
Oh, okay.
West Douglas to.
That
Because
way
then
it's a,
when we
that
come
way it's a
back, it's already
it's a
done.
multi-phase, like we,
I got you.
like the plan at Casson was, you know, work down the road.
I got you.
What does this side of the table think on that?
Now, I'm gonna guess that design cost, they said for the mill and fill it was gonna be $25,000. Okay? This full depth is gonna be a more in-depth project. It costs more, they're gonna have more time in it.
You're gonna have storm management.
So, I hate to speak for them what the design would be. I wouldn't think it would
More than that,
double,
yeah, more.
but it's gonna be more than the 25.
Can't you get like a frequent customer discount for us?
I'll try. And then you're gonna pay.
Yeah.
So you need to be aware that normally when we do the Ohio Public Works, they do the design over the winter and spring. We pay them the first part of next year. And then you get the project.
So if we do the design now and then we pull out of the project,
You always
we always have
have
design.
Design is-
It's not gonna
It's
change.
there for whenever you're ready.
Yes.
Right.
I just wanna make you aware of the design. If they were saying 25, it might be 35. I just want you to be
Yeah.
aware.
We can't waste the design money.
No.
Right,
Because
it's
it's
still there.
gonna get done eventually until,
Full,
you know,
full,
cars
full
fall through
depth
the street.
reclamation, that design will be good. It won't change.
Charlie or Nicole, do you guys have thoughts on this?
I just feel we should go ahead and just get the full design and then, let's see, I know we have to apply by November 10th. That's the real hangup I have. Because you gotta make a decision. I like the hybrid. I think the hybrid, it's only $31,000 more than the number three, and you're getting the whole street, at least something done to it.
130.
130.
No, but he's talking about if you just take
The
the
gap.
27%.
$31,000
Yeah.
difference
Yeah.
between the two, okay? And I think for that, we're doing a whole street. I mean, I
We have to get a different design though,
But we're getting a design for the whole thing, right?
Right.
Yeah,
we
but
designed
the-
Design for the best plan.
but they have to design it for the mill and
One
fill.
design will be much less complicated.
Right.
The upper half, which is probably the better base, the lower section's probably where the base is the problem. The upper half won't take as much effort on the engineer's part as the lower half.
So you're recommending we ask for the hybrid design?
If
and
you're gonna
apply
go for the hybrid, if
Right.
you wanna apply for the hybrid, then we should get the hybrid
Right,
design.
exactly. Design the whole thing, ask for the hybrid, and go from there.
Do the
Right.
designs build? Would a hybrid design be included in a full depth design? You could just back out some of those
Yeah,
details,
yeah.
so whatever you get, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's a situation where we're going to do the right repair eventually, but just maybe not right now due to the budget.
And that design will not change.
Not unless you want the upper end then to go to full depth.
Right.
But if you're saying,
If
do the
the,
high design and only submit the bottom.
I'm a little
so,
confused.
okay, here,
Well,
I'll
I'm
explain it really fast.
totally
You
confused.
can't ask for a full depth reformation design for the entire street and then try to do a different, you don't have the design for the mill and fill. So you would have to ask for them to design the hybrid and go with the hybrid, Or you can ask them to do they can design the whole road as intended for the full street price. And then we can only apply to do half the street. And then later come back and do the other half the next year.
Okay.
Or
So
you
my
can't-
question
Cause you
about-
can't do the full depth left the design's different because they're not building this, you're not building the same
Okay, so
thing.
you're saying basically go for the design for the full street,
For the
right?
full street.
Full street design, and
And
then
then
at that point, if
only
we
apply-
don't need, or not going to do that at the point, we're gonna go hybrid or the half street, that design won't have to be
Well, you
changed?
can't.
Full street design,
Yeah.
full depth reclamation, but only apply for grant from Oregon Street to Whittier.
You
Okay.
can't apply, you wouldn't apply for the hybrid, like, the design for the full street won't be the same as for the work you would perform in the hybrid.
No,
Does that make?
if you ask for the design of the hybrid, the upper half
Right.
is only gonna be mill and fill. And then if you wanna come back later and.
You're gonna have to have another
No, no,
design
no.
then.
You'd have
It's
to
another
design.
design.
What I'm saying is if we design the entire road, I think is where the hangup is. If you go for the entire full depth information design, to do the entire street as best we possibly can, I think their hangup is you can't do a hybrid work based off of those designs.
That's my
Okay.
question.
That's what I
Okay,
was
okay.
saying.
I got-
There we go.
That's
Yeah,
where
okay.
you lost me. So
Okay.
the hybrid and the full depth
This
are different.
hybrid
Correct.
Would
Okay.
require a hybrid design of mill and
Correct.
fill on the
Thank you.
top,
Yep,
full
yep.
depth on the bottom. And then it would seem to me you'd wanna bid the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because if you wanna do the top differently, then you'd have to redesign.
I see.
Okay.
Exactly.
So the question before us is, from the design standpoint,
What design do you want?
do we want to do a hybrid design? Because in the future, we would look at doing it complete or in pieces. Or do we want to do the full depth reclamation design, knowing that that means in the future we can do it in sections
Yep.
or all at once? There's no hybrid option at that point without additional design expense.
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
The answer is yes, yeah. But how bad is the upper half then? You know, we know from Oregon to Williams, it needs full depth.
The upper half, I think has some spot repair. The biggest thing I need on the upper half would be curb and gutter, because the individual that lives right at the corner of South Main and West Douglas, the dome of the road sheets water down onto his property. And he's called me
Thanks, Sean.
multiple
I was just gonna
times
ask
and
you to
said,
pull
"There's
that up,
nothing I can
please."
do about that." With curb and gutter, we could catch that water in the curb, put a storm drop right there, catch it before it would turn into his driveway per se, and then there'd be curb the rest of the way.
So
down.
with doing the half street, is that doing curb and gutter for the whole street or just for that one portion?
Just a half. It says right there, full depth information on West Douglas from South Oregon to Williams,
Yeah,
including
we'll
new
put
curb gutter sides
that
and
won't
storm
help-
improvements for the
That
area.
won't help the gentleman up on the.
Okay,
Yeah, you're only doing the half.
okay. I didn't know if the curb and gutter were going to still go
No.
all the way, okay.
So now on the hybrid, the curb and gutter would run.
All the
from
way.
Main Street all the way to Williams.
So the hybrid does include curb and gutter for everything. So
Just not full depth reclamation on.
on the road. So it does have the drainage. The drainage
Yes.
plan is in all of them. Jack, in your opinion, Jack, looking at a 10-year window, the base of the upper part, I mean, you haven't quoted it, but
There you go.
does it require full depth reclamation to get us down the road 10 years from now with a drivable surface? Or would the hybrid be enough to,
I would not want the lower half not to be full depth.
no, I'm with you there. I'm
But
there.
the upper half, you could probably get 7 to 10 years out of it, and you're gonna help it by moving the water.
Because you're gonna get your curb and gutter in your storm.
But it's much more expensive because of what we're doing to the lower section.
Sure.
It's like all the mill and filling. You're gonna get 7 to 10 years out of it. You're gonna see the break in the road at Williams. The lower section is gonna hold together a lot better than the top after a 5 or 6 year period. You're gonna see that top asphalt begin to stretch and move, where the lower section will remain solid. But you're gonna spend a heck of a lot more money. I mean, so it depends on which way you wanna go.
Well, my concern is that the guy who's complaining the most still isn't gonna get anything if we don't do something for him. I mean, the water, you said we do the upper half and don't do it, then he still has the same problem as he has of today. And when we plan to get back to it, that's the thing. You know, once we do a project, a lot of times going back to pick up the other part of the project kind of wanes away, all right? And I don't think, you know,
An
I'm
example
not
of that-
saying that we have the money to spend it, I'm just taking a look at the realism of him not being able to get
An
satisfied.
example of that is South Casson. The plan was to do a block every year. Well, it's been a few years since we've done that first block. But I don't fault the council for that, because other emergencies and other roads fall apart at a different rate, and all of a sudden we had to look over here, we have to look over here. You know, it's urgency on what roads come up the most. Now, we do know that Oregon and that Douglas and Williams takes a lot of traffic into that school, so it's high traffic area. The upper section doesn't take near the traffic of who comes down Oregon and Williams. And
Okay.
if you haven't looked at Williams in a while, that's something else. we
Yeah.
need to look at.
Right.
But we're not talking about that today.
You also are just running into, when you have to think about these projects, like the best way to, in my opinion, to look at it is if you full depth the whole thing,
Sean's got it right here.
Yeah,
You can
that's what it looks
see,
like.
Yeah, it's bad.
if you full depth the whole thing, when we come back to it 15, 20 years down the road, your sub base is already really good, so milling and filling it's an amazing option, and you're keeping your costs down later.
well, what we did on West Jersey, we just keep putting the running course
Right,
on the
so,
top.
so
Right,
later
so
it's
right.
costing us less money. It's, you have the upfront expense and then over years, decades, you get to spend less money. Versus if we mill and fill it, then we're gonna come back at some point probably and have to do it again anyways.
But if you look at that road,
Yeah, it's-
another winter, it's gonna be a rough go, so.
Okay, do we have a motion for any of these options, or,
I'd like to make a motion to design the full depth for the full street and apply for a full depth on the half.
Go over that again, John.
To get the design to do the whole street all the way, 100%, but then only apply for the half street for this upcoming year.
I'll second that.
So you're saying design for full street
Full street.
and then apply for
half.
half street?
And the only thing that changes is that the hybrid option is now off the table
Correct.
without additional expense. That's the give and take, because you can't go hybrid on a full depth design.
Right,
You have to have, these are independent of each other.
right.
And then doing the project, you can do it in partial, that isn't
And then-
affected.
26% on the half.
Yes.
uh,
96.
Application. Okay.
Plus 35 for design.
and we'll know
Yep.
by we'll know by the end of December where we are, if we can move forward with this. We'll go ahead and
We
put
can pull it
the
off.
application in.
Yes.
Jack,
We're not
would you
really
say we have
appropriating money,
fair odds of
except
getting
for
that
we are appropriating
accepted?
for the design.
Going with 26% and the rest of it grant. You got fair odds.
Okay,
We can always rework the,
Yeah, our bill now is 35,000-ish. That's what we'd be spending
That's
with this,
design,
with this
right?
vote for design.
Design.
And then everything after that is, because there's no splitting of design.
And that's 35,000-ish. I will firm
Yeah,
that
yep.
number up, but if it's within that realm, I'll go ahead. You know, we're gonna have to make a decision, which is what.
And
you're
it's a
doing.
repair that we need, so we want to make sure when we submit this, because you get one chance to submit.
the year.
So we want to make sure that we're putting enough money down to make sure that we have a good chance of getting
100%.
that.
One chance per year. As I
Yeah.
said, East Jersey, we applied for it 3 times before we got it.
okay.
Right, I mean, you might not
You want to
get,
amend to put a number to your
Yes.
motion,
Were they
a top
consecutive?
for Jack to work
Were they
with?
consecutive?
Teresa, will you put for the motion 35 on the engineering
Jack,
at the top? And if not, if it's more than that, we come back to it.
did you put the same deal down for that?
Because if we don't get the award of this year,
We actually.
next year,
Yes.
we might be able to hit the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's
Is
an
it cost
investment.
each
Right.
time? Did you do it each
Zero
time?
interest.
Okay,
I got a question on that.
Yes, Charles.
6%
Jack.
increase to 0.
Got it.
So let's say that we find money in the budget to go ahead and say, let's do the upper half, after we've applied. What happens?
That would be all out of your pocket.
Really? If we cut it out of
Yeah,
pocket
'cause
money?
once our application is in, it's being graded against.
But you could wait until the next year and
And apply
apply for that one and then add in another road if you
Now,
wanted.
the other part of this is I'm gonna, in the narrative, this is a continuing
Continuous,
project.
yep.
Yes.
Because we call it continuing project all the way down Oregon, so now Oregon, and we'll punch up that it's in front of the school, you know, because they like that. And, you know, so it'll be a continuation of an existing project, is the way we're gonna try to form it. So when we go to do the upper section, we'll try to link that into that as well.
okay.
But yes, once the application is in, there will be no more grant money or anything like that. We would have to.
But we can apply next year for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The school does their own apron, their own connection, as far as to tie
Well,
it.
we'd go, I think we go about 6 feet around the.
So when do we meet again with the school?
But
Just
that's
kind of
all
give them a
they're
heads up on
right
what our
now,
plan is so that they can think about that in their budget, so it doesn't look like a drop off.
Well, the South Oregon radiuses are already in.
At the bottom, when they redid that park.
Well, the bottom where they went through.
Yeah.
So 6 feet into each one of those entrances.
But we would go around the corners on Williams.
Okay.
We usually go 5 to 10 feet, just around the corner.
We should be okay.
Okay.
We'll have it all put in.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second then, Teresa?
Brian Green,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
Charlie Campbell,
Yes.
Nicole Shook,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
John Barnard,
Yes.
John Merriman.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll get that in tomorrow.
Do you have anything else, Chuck?
That'll do it unless there's any other questions.
I have a couple questions for you. How long should the Jersey Street project take once, if they were to come back next week, how long should it take before they're done with it?
Well, materials train has been the problem here, but we know for sure right now, there'll be no paving until next spring. So my goal is to get the infrastructure, water lines lowered, new service lines in, and storm sewer repairs in through December, January-ish, and then be ready. Because once it gets so cold, they'll shut
Okay.
down. So my goal is to be ready next spring for pavement. So I want to get all that underground infrastructure in.
Okay. And then the screen cleaning that you brought up, how long had it been since it was cleaned?
We cleaned it, just a brief cleaning roughly 5 years ago because the foot valves in the well did not hold and the line backed down into the well. So we had a very quick cleaning there. But a big, deep, productive cleaning had probably been 12 years.
Are we putting any procedures in place to do that more often now, since we saw the effects
Generally
of it?
speaking, we look for fall off in the well. We just don't clean it every so many years because it's expensive. The situation was, we were pulling so little volume out of that well that it wasn't help keeping the screens clean. If you're pulling a well at close to its maximum production, it actually develops itself. It pulls the fines out. But because we're pulling so little water out of that particular well, we pull mainly out of the deeper wells, the bottom section of the screen, and no water was even flowing through it, so it just crusted over.
Okay.
So generally, we won't see cleaning until, every 7 years, we do pull and do an inspection, but we don't do a deep cleaning on them because they don't need it.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have.
At this time, before we move into a potentially lengthy part of the meeting here, I'd like to make a motion for a quick recess.
I'll second.
Aye.
Wait for you, buddy.
Next on the agenda for tonight is the city manager report, and that's all you, Sean.
All right. I think it's been laid down as a challenge to zip through this as quick as possible, but that'll depend on the questions that come from you. So I will attempt it to move along. Number one, Mobility Hub. For those of you that weren't here, just some background. The city applied for a sizable grant. We were not awarded that. Darlene from Etch was kind of spearheading some movement on that, and is Matt from LCATS. In some agenda item in the near future, they would like to make a brief presentation on the scope of this project and what has been done year to date, and then kind of see where you want to move forward on that. So I think it's only fair to give you background. I'm not going to be able to speak intelligently enough about it because I got onboarded about 90% of the project completion as far as discussion goes. So those two are going to be the informative ones, and I can schedule that meeting. You can probably take about a 15-minute, maybe 20-minute discussion from them and see where you want to go with it. That leads me to, I'll skip actually to item number 3. And it was discussed at the Transportation Improvement District, and the TID does need some feedback from the city and LCATS on how to move forward with that. So I'll jump back up. Port Authority land progress has slowed. We are working through some of the zoning, design review, and tax abatement questions. Back down to 3. MS Consultants is doing a local study on intersection and roads to be impacted by the Intel project. We had a Teams call with them. MKSK are individuals that are doing the comprehensive plan. We're able to backfill and are going to continue to backfill some information for them as we have some of that information come online. So kind of a timing issue that we don't have with some of the things they need, but as they start to progress with some of that, they are going to forward that over to MS Consultants. Licking County Framework. Another informative one for some of you that may have not been here or aware. The county is actually doing a comprehensive plan as well, mostly focusing on the western Licking County area. There's been a collaboration between townships, cities, and the commissioners, and the TJ Evans Foundation is really the one that spearheaded this, Sarah Wallace. And so village participation or city participation, I believe, on this was $10,000. I want to check that. I believe it was 2. There was another one for 10,000. This one maybe was only 2. So just to give you an update, they are currently in the works with that. I've been attending a couple meetings to provide information on this and just give them some insight as to what we're currently doing with our comprehensive plan. And these will probably continue for the next 2 to 3 months. The previous mayor was attending those. Obviously, the situation has changed, and I've tried to pick up the pieces where that's been left off. Integrity bookkeeping. We're currently working on a UAN conversion. For some of you that weren't here, we had SSI, and we are converting to UAN. It's probably a great stopgap for us right now. The UAN is something that municipalities our size use. It's a cost savings. Mayor Barnard ran a lot of the numbers on that, and I can't remember what date, but the discussion was to make that conversion. There was a $30,000 initial cost, but I think an ROI on that's going to be 5-year
Yes.
compared to what we were looking at before. So this is something that may not get us through the 10-year span, maybe 15, but it's going to last us probably for a foreseeable future in the next 5 to 6 years to get us a return on our investment. It is the system that the state auditor uses, so audits will be much easier moving forward, and the annualized cost on this is a lot cheaper. So we are still working on some of the daily financials with Integrity. I just had a phone call from Kathy today, and I'm just going to warn or advise or give you a heads up. She's going to come to the next Finance Committee meeting, and she's just going to lay some things out there the way they are. There's probably no good way to put things, so she's just going to lay it the way it is. So look forward to that. That will be fun. Their contract ends on October 7th. We are now on a month-to-month. I would like to reassess this for their benefit and also for ours. I would hate to see more of these phone calls come in from them from a frustration standpoint. and if there's no contract in place, the ability for them to walk and leave, I don't think they would, but I think from a protectionary and a procedural thing, we need to protect ourselves from that type of situation and get into some kind of contract that extends it. I know the UAN, the conversion, we've started to pay them for that. So there's, I believe, a 4-month build out on that particular project. But I'm going to advise Kathy if she could put something before us, so that way we could do another 6-month possible contract, just as a placeholder. That way they can't walk away. I think that would be a protection from the city.
And I will say this with them, the firm understands governmental accounting very well. They have advised us on certain things with our governmental accounting, on how to do things better. They're very knowledgeable when it comes to governmental accounting, so.
Got a lot of good recommendations that I think are going to be able to save us some money
And I think put us on a better financial footing going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. 2023 budget. Mayor Bernard hit on this a little bit earlier. We've been trying to work on a draft so that it can get before Finance Committee for their review. We'll have another one this Thursday. Only thing I would advise is we have 2 council members currently, from what I'm aware of, attending. I know Mayor Bernard's going to be there. Bernard, if someone else is going to be there, that's fine, but no more than 3, or else we have to have a meeting, which is fine, but we just need proper notice to publicize a meeting, and then obviously we would hold that meeting over there, and it would be open to the public, which honestly, they're all open to the public, in my opinion, but just let us know ahead of time if more than 1 or 2 or 3 are going to attend. 4 is
Talking about the finance meeting?
No, it's just working on.
It's a
putting the
work
budget-
session.
Oh, got it,
put the budget
yeah.
Yep. No, this is, as I had mentioned earlier, we don't have necessarily a finance director right here. Integrity is working through the daily operations. For them to start to try to work on a 2023 budget is probably not practical for them to do both at the same time. So we've plugged ourselves in to be that missing piece to where we can get a 2023 operating budget before the end of the year so that we can better plan for next year. And they are helping us in that process. And like I said,
To better explain it, we have to go through and look at 2022 numbers first, see what's in each category. Like, we need to make sure, okay, if it's this line item A, that everything in there pertains to line item A, so that when we make our budget for next year, for 2023, we can base it off this year's numbers and forecast it the next year. But we have to know what this year's numbers are first, and that's where Integrity's
Yep.
helping us by saying, okay, this is in this account, this is in this account. We understand what's in them, and that takes a long time when you're going through 800 lines of accounts, so. I think we're through over half of it at this
We
point.
are.
So,
It's been good progress.
the next portion should go a little bit faster. It's more of our debt and water and sewer, so.
Tons of fun. Don't want to miss it.
Finance is real important. Does anyone else have any questions about kind of how that happens and how we got there? It's really important to understand that. It's critical.
But that once this working budget's done, it will go to the finance committee to look at, ask questions, tear apart, change. At that point, if the finance committee changes it, approves it, they send it to council. Council will then have the opportunity to review it all, make any changes before we move on. But we've got to get this done before the end of the year based on our regulations.
Our charter requires that we pass a budget.
So what's happening now is they're figuring out what's in each bucket, determining what should be in each bucket. Therefore, we can budget per bucket and appropriate the fund.
Let me ask you this much, is it better, I know that you had mentioned that if that little session, if no more than 3 council members, or it would have to be a meeting.
And that's fine. We can have a meeting. We just need to know so that we can properly.
Procedurally,
publicize
you
it.
have things you have to do.
I get it, but would it be better if we just, as council, just try to limit it to just 3 so we don't have to do the meeting so you guys can get some stuff done?
However you want to slice it.
I'm putting it out there, because we're gonna, no matter what you guys do behind that session, or do in that session, every council member here is gonna see it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
It's
and
gonna
we're all
go
gonna
to
see it.
Finance committee, and
So-
then it'll go to council. It'll get reviewed twice.
Right, exactly, it'll get reviewed twice, not only finance committee, but also the council, so, and it has to be done by the end of the year. So I'm just saying on a time crunch here, would it be better if we just let a couple people do this and get it done, and then we're gonna see it anyways, all council members here are gonna see it anyways?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm just putting that out there, that's all I'm saying.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It would just be like if we contracted anything out. We see
Exactly.
the finished product, and then it
Exactly.
goes through the typical review.
bet. Let's see, speaking of finance director position, previously there had been a motion to put out for the employment of a possible new finance director position. We haven't had a lot of traction from anybody with any governmental experience, so I want to put that out there first. But I am going to make a recommendation, and you can do with it as you choose. I don't know that I feel comfortable hiring for a finance director until we get a handle on our finances to know that salary, to know how long we're going to be contracted with Integrity. Because obviously, if we're contracted with Integrity, you're gonna have two positions that you're potentially paying for. So to start that process prematurely, you're gonna be exhausting some funds. If you're looking at it somewhere around, I think, $100,000, $95,000 salary, bringing that person in prematurely is gonna deplete potentially our budget of $30,000. So
With Integrity finishing the work that we're going to attempt or possibly contract them to do.
absolutely. So
And I think we can have a plan in, by the end of the year,
absolutely.
of what we can offer someone, and what our plan is, how to do it with integrity moving forward. I think by the end of the year, we can have a plan laid out for everybody.
Yeah, you can have a nice transition piece, and we talked a little bit to Integrity about this, but I think there needs to be a transition plan in place before we just go hiring and bringing people in before we've got a clear pathway forward with Integrity. So I just hate to pay dual roles, especially where we're at budgetarily. So, and Integrity's been great to work with. I don't think they're going to leave us high and dry. So I feel confident with doing that. Same thing with the city planner position, removing the post. But I also want to bring you up to speed. I have had a conversation with American Structure Point. They're one of the firms that actually pitched the comprehensive plan. I met him at a TID meeting, and they were looking to hire someone. But they didn't have enough work. And so I said, well, we're potentially hiring someone. He said, we've done a hybrid situation. They operate out of Indiana. They don't have anything in Ohio, but they've done this in Indiana to where we would share some of that cost. They would hire the individual, and then they would kind of subcontract them out to us on an as-need basis. And that would be for city planning position. Now, that city planning position would be kind of plan overview. So for instance, if we got hypothetically a new subdivision that's going in over in the Concord area, they're going to submit an entire plan. Somebody needs to sit down and go through every detail of that. I can go ahead and do that, but we can also hire someone on a contractual basis to do that, and then specifically for that, and we don't have them sitting in the office twiddling their thumbs after that particular project is left. Now, we will get to a point where we're going to have enough projects online to keep this individual busy. I did talk to MKSK and a couple other planning firms that said maybe having a city planner with a city of our size previous to Intel was maybe not necessary. But we did have Bailey doing a lot of other things. So if we're just looking at it from a strictly city planner position, and that's what we're gonna have them do, then maybe it's not necessary. So I can get you more information on that. They did send a draft contract over, so I'm gonna call up Michael Salvador is his name, AKA something else. We've got nicknames for him.
So we met them actually through the process to find MKSK.
Yes.
So they've submitted things to us before. Seems like a pretty solid group, so.
I think it's really important for council to really look at each of the positions within the city
Absolutely.
and really dig into what do we need to get us the next 5 years and hire wisely
Absolutely.
instead of hiring for positions we may not need right now.
As long as they don't let their new employee learn on the job at our expense.
Right.
We need someone that can, we're not in a position to do it incorrectly. We need someone that can do it correctly. Because we're not gonna have hiring review, but we can hire them or not. So the contract should be limited, not everything we do, we're paying you to do. We need to
Yes.
evaluate.
I believe the person of interest, if they still have interest for them, actually did apply, and we've reviewed their application.
So there was two individuals, and John
Yeah.
is correct. One of them did apply. They did have another applicant as well. I think they're actually they looked at both applicants, to John's point. I don't think they went with Courtney, but they are looking at the other one. And to Bob's point, we would also be able to interview this individual before the
good.
contract was made.
My concern is
That was
that
my
a
point.
cost savings would be nice, but at the same time, we can't afford to miss.
Oh, no, we would definitely have an interview. I made that clear to Michael that we would obviously want to interview this individual as well. It's just not a blind,
See if you can expand the conversation to someone in their firm can do it, and then we can still potentially contract with them, they can still collect their money, but we can help pick maybe someone that's been doing it for a decade.
and this individual has had previous city planner experience. It may have been in Gahanna, but I'm not sure. I can
I'm
check.
addressing the role, not the person, so
Gotcha.
as long as we're
This
keeping
is-
an eye on that, that's fine.
We wanna
Like
make
I
sure
said,
we're
this role's
qualified.
gonna have to be somebody with a little bit of customer service too, because obviously any new neighborhoods, new development, things like that, the public's gonna be in here and have questions and need them answered, so.
Yeah, nope, it's part of the role. Great.
Good.
Let's see. Just a recap, I won't bore you with this since most of you were there. NCA's, TIF, CRA's presentation, Greg Stipe, I thought it went really, really well. The superintendent was there. I felt that that was a great opportunity for the school and the city to have a collaboration as we see a lot of these changes coming down the road pretty quickly. We need to have some partnerships in this, and I think that's a great opportunity. I will put it out there, I would like to have a CRA agreement in place with Johnstown Monroe School District and the city of Johnstown by the end of the year. So if you were there, we did talk briefly about the tri-party agreement and how it is advantageous for us to have that in place from a business recruitment standpoint. They currently have that in other municipalities that exist inside Johnstown Monroe School District. I don't suggest reinventing the wheel. It seems to work well for all parties that are involved with it now. My recommendation would be to reach out to the school district, see if we could enter into a similar agreement and get that online, like I said, before the end of the year, if you're agreeable to that. Okay. Annexation, like I said, same thing here. You all were there. I'll bring up the very end of it. I would like to have a pre-annexation agreement drafted with Monroe Township for review and discussion by February 1st. This one's a little bit longer. Obviously, I'm really okay with a sooner date, but I think this one's gonna be a little bit more complicated because it doesn't exist already. The school already has a document in place. So this is gonna be a relationship with the Monroe Township, and I honestly don't know how they feel about it. I have had a little bit of conversations, and they are sensitive to the financial impact or loss, but obviously from the annexation conversations that we had last week, there's not really gonna be any financial loss for them under certain types of annexation. So as long as we can press that point, I think we'll be able to move forward. And that will be helpful so that we can capture, I believe it's the type 2 annexation that we wanna have online. COTC,
I just want to make a note real quick,
Sure.
so that everyone understands. Municipalities do not annex property owners. Property owners come to the municipality with the request. And there's many different types, but the ideal one would be there's a negotiation between services from the municipality to the private landowners, and there's a balance there. There's a big misconception out there that municipalities or businesses go out and you can't do it, it's not legal. So the property owners have to have an interest in being annexed. Now, there are situations where they all don't have to be, but in general, the majority of the property owners, there are exceptions. So please don't find the ones that there are, but the vast majority of annexations are from property owners coming to municipalities saying, we would like to be part of your municipality and because we want these services from you. And then the details are worked out from there. I think it's just critical. There's a big misconception that people go out and grab property. It's not how it works. So, that's it.
great point. No. COTC. I think it is important. It's probably not the hottest one on the radar, but we have started a conversation with COTC to potentially have a satellite campus here. I think in light of the employment opportunities that are going to exist in our close proximity, that having a satellite campus here to give the opportunity for the youth in this area to have more upward mobility close to home so that they can be job ready for a lot of these great opportunities that are going to be right out their doorstep is great for the community, but I also think it's a great win for COTC and also a good win for some of our economic development that we're going to see coming down the road. So I do want to continue these. These are a little bit slower, but the last conversation I had There is a strong desire from COTC. The next step in this is we would need to identify potential classes and programming. They really lean on the municipality. They believe that we know our area best and what we want to focus on. And then they would do some test classes, but then they also need to identify some incubator sites for the classes to occur. That could be a conversation with the school district. However, I'm not unaware of the limitations that the school district currently has with some of their space. So we would need to get creative in our thinking, whether that occur here or in any other space that we may have from a city area that could be identified for them. I can give you some specific square footages for different number of classes, and we work through some of that. I can have an email followed up with that. CIC, Johnstown has a CIC. This would be an opportunity for them to maybe collaborate to identify a building. Maybe they lease it, then they become an owner of it as far as that COTC location goes. So going to be a little bit slower of a process, but the next step is identifying classes. So put that out there, think about it. We'll probably have another discussion on this.
Superintendent, the one question that I would pop immediately to my mind would be, would it be for Johnstown students only, or would it be opened up to the community? Because now we're talking about mixing people in an off-site location, and all the things that come with being in a Johnstown school building may not be present. And we want to make sure we can manage that for the parents who would have potentially legitimate concerns.
It would be opened up to everyone. That's how COTC operates.
Right,
So that's the trickiness of having it inside of a school facility. So I have talked to the superintendent, Dr. Wagner, on this, and he has a great relationship with COTC. He was excited about the opportunity and the idea. So that's good news, but obviously that space sensitivity, and I think you bring up a great point. You've got some age disparities there.
Potentially, and
Yeah, absolutely. So put on your creative thinking caps. We'll try to get through that one together and visually see some spaces where they may be able to just come in, do some test classes and get their feet wet. And then hopefully they'll jump in after a year or two and really make a commitment. They've done it on Pataskala over there is another site that may be an example. I think also up in Coshocton. They've got a satellite there. So, yep,
I think Pataskala is a lot of people go there.
absolutely.
What about the old nursing home?
I think Sharon is bringing up wonderful ideas.
Yeah.
It could be a part of the conversation.
Paranormal.
So, absolutely.
We need to do something with them.
That'd be a great building
I don't
for it.
disagree.
It would be, that would be.
That could be a CIC. The only obstacle I could see there would be your potential parking issue.
True.
So, but no, I think it's a great idea.
the schools would bus, I would assume. So,
Yeah, I wouldn't think there's.
Well, COTC is going to be more adult-driven. It's definitely, it'll be everyone that has a driver's license. They don't do any type of transportation. You may be thinking of Central Ohio, or I'm sorry,
see,
CTEC.
that is exactly what
Yeah.
I'm thinking of. I'm sorry.
I couldn't even think of it, so I knew what you were thinking.
That's exactly what it is.
So they made
ESP was going. So.
They made COTC work in the Grand Host East over there.
Yep.
They could, you know,
Absolutely.
and I think that's smaller than the nursing home.
It has some parking challenges
So if
as well.
they, I don't know, we'll see what we do, but if they took down a wing or something, maybe they could get more parking that way. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Purpose some space that's not being utilized and it's kind of falling on unsightly eyes. MKSK Comprehensive Plan, you were there with that as well. They will be reaching out to you all here in the near future, probably this week or next week. They want to schedule up some 30-minute interviews just to get some feedback and they're going to ask you some questions. So just be prepared for that. I don't anticipate any excruciating, painful experience. It'll probably be a pleasant one. So, Personnel Board of Review. I'll go into personal review first. We're working on finalizing the code for personnel practices and procedures. We are currently working with legal and HR to finalize a draft. This draft will go to the Personnel Board of Review Committee and then to council for your review and adoption. This will incorporate the civil service agreement, employee handbook. I'm not going to pretend to speak of all the intricate details. I'll let David Riepenhoff or Training Marbles maybe speak to that a little bit more. But we do need to get that online moving forward. We're currently operating off of our older handbook, and we've obviously got some changes coming down the way pretty quickly. So the quicker we can get that up and running, the better. And that brings me to the next thing. We do have this committee, but it does not have any members on it. We do have applicants. Is that correct, Teresa?
I believe we have 6 now.
So my recommendation would be next council meeting, do some interviews, fill this committee with 3 individuals. It's not a council committee, it's a community committee. So we'll get that online, and then that way Dave Riepenhoff is supposed to have me a final draft of this particular document next Tuesday, and then we can start working through the process on how to get that adopted. So it won't be a quick process, but it needs to start happening now.
Yeah. The review board make recommendations, and then council would approve.
Yep. Zoning, this got brought up during the annexation, possible light manufacturing rewrite in the near future. I'd like to be able to get to that, probably gonna have to wait till after this budget situation's done, just in the sensitivity of time, and then also start moving through some other districts. We had started on, Ryan, we'd started on GCC 1 and GCC 2, and I just have not been able to get that final draft across the finish line to bring it over to council or for.
Yeah, we've had some things on the schedule.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, so we'll get there. So Greater Park and Rec District. Currently, we are working with the Greater Johnstown Park and Rec District and Johnstown Monroe Local School District on the Miles Estate. We've had many meetings over the last month, and things are progressing. In light of everything that does exist with this particular site, no matter what happens, and I think some good things are going to happen, I think it's a great opportunity there again for that collaboration between the school district, us, and the park district. So this is a good little trust walk that we're doing right now that's going to hopefully help us in the future for some of the harder conversations that we will have. This will hopefully get the conversation a little bit more relaxed. Lobbying efforts, just for those of you that weren't there, and I put some of these notes in, the city is no longer under contract with the Seekmans. They were a lobbyist group that we employed. If you ever want to go back to that, they have reached out and said that they are still obviously available, but at this point, I think council made the right decision, putting a pin in that and waiting till we get our house in order so we can properly present our message to the correct legislative bodies and correct congressmen or women is necessary, or else we may be just spinning our wheels by giving them some false narratives to go by. So existing infrastructure issues, we still have a drainage issue on Golden Pond. Daniel Swick has been working with, I think, Cody up there.
What's Golden Pond?
Golden Pond is up near Leafy Dell. You've had,
The new side.
yeah, there's some drainage issues to where there was some catch basins, dandy bags were put in place. The grass seed was not put in and sod was not put in, so then all the silt filled the dandy bag, then the area filled in, and then it had a overrun into the farmer's field. Especially an issue during the spring, obviously it flooded up some of his fields. They were supposed to go in and make some necessary changes. They've made some changes, but probably needs to be revisited. The only thing we have really to go by is accepting that road. Everything else is pretty well done over there, so my recommendation to Daniel and Jack was obviously, let's not accept that road until we get some final checkoffs and go through that entire project just to make sure we're satisfied, and then we're not gonna have any other issues that we're gonna have to deal with later on and clean up on our dime whenever it should be their responsibility.
And that lays on the developer, correct?
What's that?
That's the developer.
Oh, Miranda, correct.
Miranda, yeah,
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
And they're done at this point. So they get their sign. I know that was a question too.
Did they get their sign?
Yeah, did they get their sign out?
Good question. I did bring it up with Jim Blair. He actually had a conversation with them. They were supposed to have it up this week. He said if they don't have it up by this week, he's gonna reach out and say, what's the delay? And hopefully by next week, after a little motivation from Jim, they'll get that sign up, so,
Have them send their drainage guys when they do it.
yeah.
I have a
They're-
new chainsaw if they need,
They're a little tricky.
looking for things to do with it.
And then, as far as some drainage and infrastructure items, Concord Crossing Detention Pond. Prime was here, gosh, probably 2 months ago, Jack and Mark went over there, kind of looked in there, made an assessment that maybe a plate had been removed, which limits the ability of that detention pond to function properly. In effect, doesn't detain any water, it just lets it free flow. The point of a detention pond is to restrict that water and then naturally let it go at a slower rate as it was prior to the development going on. So we want to prevent any flooding downstream, and with that plate potentially being removed, it could be impacting downstream negatively. So we're going to try to do some assessments there. We're trying to find the old plans to save us some money. That is on village property. Bob, you may have been here whenever we accepted that. I can't remember, but it was,
I don't
it was
remember.
a ways back. Sharon, you were definitely here when we had that conversation where we actually had to take it over from the developer because it was no longer in existence, bankruptcy and all those other things. So the village took it over. It's kind of our responsibility.
It still seems to drain pretty fast though, doesn't it, when the water fills
Yeah,
in?
it
That's the problem.
drains, and they're saying that's the problem, but without the existing storm sewer metrics, how
Right.
it's supposed to drain, we're in a position, if we can't find the old information, which we're not having any luck finding, we're gonna have to have it reassessed, which will be an engineering expense.
But yeah, that is the problem. It flows too fast. If you notice that.
My neighborhood doesn't care. We like it draining fast because it floods on our end if it doesn't, so.
The people downstream would argue differently.
Yeah.
So, because all that water is on those impervious surface and it does shed pretty quickly, it obviously creates some
Gotcha.
issues. So it does need to retain some of that water. It was designed to retain water, and at this point, if you've lived over there, it really doesn't retain much water at all.
It goes quick.
It goes quick, which is great. And most of them are designed to where after it gets to a certain level, it will let it free flow. So that way they don't have the flooding issues on the residents back there. And those, every 5-year flood events or something along those lines. So,
So with that,
yeah,
we haven't been able to find any schematics.
not
We
yet.
haven't been able to find any of the old math of how to do it. I'm just sitting on this. Do you want me to get an engineer and reassess this, or do you want me to continue to wait?
Impacts to act now or do nothing.
I was honestly going to wait till I get the budget information back. I would love to say, let's get it started and let's get it engineered now, but it is a cost that we need to be able to pay, and I'm hesitant to put out any project that has a $25,000 price tag without any knowledge of where that particular money is going to be coming from, and without knowing the obligations that we've already committed to currently that are going to impact our budget. I'll be honest, like from a budgetary, we're pulling stuff from engineering, from HR. HR is coming out of, it's a complicated mess right now.
And just so the public knows, we are not broke.
No,
And I don't want the public thinking that by us saying this, we do not want to overburden ourselves in the future with debt that we pile on with projects, engineering, stuff like that. So we're trying to put our house in order right now, see exactly where we are to make the right decisions going forward. I just don't want people thinking, oh, the town's can't pay their bills. We can
No,
pay
we're
our
gonna pay
bills.
our bills.
We just want to make sure we do it right and prepare the future generations, so,
What do you want to end up house for?
right.
On the backside of that, it's West Concord is where that pond is, right?
it's the oldest part of Concord Crossing
So-
subdivision, yes.
The oldest?
I believe so, yes.
The oldest
Let me
would
pull it
be east.
up. Yeah, so it would be east. I'm sorry, you're right. Let me pull it up. Specifically, go to a different map.
So our pond overfills into that.
Into that bit, right.
This guy right here.
Yep.
Right there on Concord.
Okay.
So the village of Johnstown owns that. I won't bore you with how that all transpired, but it had to do with some bankruptcies and probably some poor management from prior administrations way back in the 90s.
So in every new house, as that development fills out, adds water to the
So you have, everything over here goes into this.
right. So every new house there
Retention pond.
exacerbates the problem.
Well, the engineering on that pond is there and complete, and the engineers will tell you its release rates are correct.
Yes, so
Leaving that pond.
So it releases into here properly.
Yeah.
It's mostly this, all of these storm systems and everything else release into here
And the condo.
and the condos. So, and there's not really any restriction plate. So whenever all those storm drains dump into here, there's no restriction, and so it just,
And it's
Almost
and it's
downstream.
hard to tell. I got in there and looked at it, and you know, you're looking on concrete, you're looking at shadows and what may have been there. It looked like there was some sort of restrictor plate there. My problem is I just can't put anything up because I don't know what size.
right.
I was not in charge of the storm sewer when that all happened and when that plate, if there was a plate, was removed. But I can remember, after that was built out and installed, that would fill almost to the road level at one time.
And then release.
And then release over a 24-hour period.
When we
It
have it
would
released.
drain within 24 hours. And now it'll drain within 3 hours of a heavy rain.
And it may not even fill up. I was able to get some video on it last spring when we had a really, really heavy rain, and you could still see grass in some of the areas.
Still blowing through.
So-
I just want to be cautious
Absolutely.
before we, flood, 300 basements.
Yeah.
That's why we're deferring to the engineers.
Yes.
Absolutely. I would agree. So, existing Park and Rec. For some of you that weren't here, we did get awarded a capital grant for a splash pad, part of the splash pad for $250, and part of the cost of an amphitheater for $150,000. We're gonna get some more details on that, to find out the restrictions, the timelines, and possible build-outs on those items. So you're gonna hear a lot more of that. I don't know that we're gonna get into it hot and heavy over the next 6 months, but we do need to be aware, and I think the timetables are gonna be the main driver of that. If we know that we've gotta act on that within a 1-year period, then obviously we're gonna push this a little bit further along. But if it's gonna be a 3-year situation, we may put this on the back burner for now and deal with some other issues that are coming up. One that we did back burner, that we did get awarded, there is a grant for Raccoon Creek Trail for $450,000. We were awarded that. We did push that till fiscal year 2026. Construction would be in 2027. I don't have a whole lot of plans or visuals to show you, but I can give you some concepts just from an aerial map. That would include a little bit of parking here, and it would include a trail that would meander through some of this village-owned property. So the idea is to eventually have a trail that would connect all the way to the pedestrian trail that exists here, and then also potentially have one that connected with Mink, and then, boy, I'm really talking in the future, have some connectivity all the way over to JYAA. And this is a village-owned tract of land. I want to say it is 27 acres. So could really make a nice park in the center of town that could be really utilized. There's obviously some floodplains there. We've also identified it potentially for some well fields in the future in case we would need additional well fields that exist currently on JYA land. So, yeah, kind of a nice win, $450,000. I'll get you up to speed on more of that as that project continues.
Do we have a concept mapped on that?
We do, it's in Bailey's file, so let me find it.
Okay. I'm not
You know where
on,
it's at, Teresa?
I do.
We had a race one time to find it.
You wanna race?
so I'm not on Parks and Recs, but I do know here eventually, there is an organized group that wants to do
Yep.
a disc golf course. A group of citizens, so that might be something to get together with them on
Absolutely.
at the next meeting.
Really low cost for that too, so
Parking.
Yeah.
some cool wins. If you find it, let me know where I should look. Or I can move
In
on.
this SharePoint,
We're gonna move on. I can bring back next meeting.
Okay.
I'll email it.
Okay. Traffic signalization projects. So I brought it up in my last report that was probably 2 months ago, that there was potentially something happening at Leafy Dell. Confirmed that with the state of Ohio. We are on the list for that particular project. That will be a construction project in 2025. Now, this will be a conversation with Finance Committee We're obviously going to have to identify the funds for that particular project, but that particular project, I believe, is a 20% on the city and 80% partnership with LCATS. And then ODOT's participation would be they would pay for some of the design. This also coincides with 37 being repaved. And just so you're aware, now that we are a city, lucky us, we now get to help in the cost of repaving 37 and 62.
Oh, geez.
So 37, I'd say the state graciously has said we're going to be, I think, on the hook for about 80,000 for that resurfacing portion that they're doing. They're going from obviously county lines all the way down. So that will be a part of that particular project. I can get you more details. Ty from ODOT is going to give me some real hard numbers and then some timelines. This year we are expected to, next year we are expected to make our first installment on some of the, not design, but some of the, I think right-of-way acquisitions that may need to come down the line. I can get you more data. I just got off the phone with him about a week ago on that. State Route 62 at Sportsman's Club Road, we're waiting on a follow-up from Verdantes Engineering, and that was a topic in Finance Committee, so we'll have more discussion there. State Route 62, when I was talking to Ty, mentioned that there will be a resurfacing project on 62 in 2023, so there'll be resurfacing 62. Just
Are
not
we
just-
on the hook for the money for that? Or was that decided before we became a city?
Great question. So I asked the same thing. I said, we're not expected. He goes, no, we gave you a free pass because it was already planned and designed. And then we hit city status in 2020, 21-ish. And so he said, we will not be requiring you to pay anything on that. So I said, well, we appreciate that. And so Bigelow traffic signal needs to be discussed at the next safety and service meeting. For those of you that aren't aware, there is a bond, performance bond in place up at the Bigelow and 62 intersection. Whether we put a traffic signal in there or whether we reroute that traffic to the existing traffic light that's there are going to be conversations and what those costs look like. Jack and I will probably be meeting with Brad Kitchen, the owner of Altera, to potentially get some cost estimates for what he would want. I'll kick it back to you all and say, do you want us to wait to have the conversation before we get the blessing on which one you want to go with? Because I don't want to have a conversation with Brad if it's not necessary. So think about that at Safety and Service for the next month from now, and we'll highlight that. So
Sean, part of
Yeah.
that decision-making might be though, if we know what Mr.
Cost.
Kitchen wants
true.
for that section of road.
Well, on anything we decide traffic-wise, I'd like to know what the state's plan is, if there is gonna be a bypass, where it's gonna go, and what that looks like, because we may be making decisions on cars that aren't gonna be there.
Great point. And Bill Lozier reached out to me last night around, I think 5:30. I finally called him back. He was at dinner, so I only kept him for about 15 minutes. He said, I really got to go. I said, okay. We're going to
It'd be
meet.
very frustrating to spend money that's not maximized.
Yeah.
It's not optimized, however you want to phrase it, because that will make a significant difference on planning, long and short term.
For sure. Absolutely. And I think that light was kind of scheduled to go in because of the Pulte subdivision. The performance bond that they have would pay for that infrastructure there, so we would not be on the hook for that. But there could be a conversation where if you don't feel the light's necessary because the flow of traffic on 62 may decrease, I'm sure.
Well, that's a small impacted project. I mean, as you add,
for sure.
as you add lights to a main thoroughfare,
Oh.
you create massive problems.
You create
If
congestion.
we're talking about doing anything else to relieve congestion because of it,
Right.
we could potentially be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars unnecessarily because the traffic will go from overwhelming to a trickle.
And you could probably have a conversation with those individuals, and this is the same thing with the Simonello project that existed, to where as long as we're made whole, so that if we ever need to put that traffic light in, we can, but we can use that monies for other projects that we feel may be more relevant at the time. That's another conversation we can have. So I would agree with that logic wholeheartedly. That is the end of the report. Any questions?
Thank you, Sean.
You got it?
Next on the agenda is tabled legislation. I think based on the budget and everything else, we want to keep this tabled for now. There was nothing for public hearings of legislation or introduction of legislation. We'll move to other business, and one of my favorite subjects in the world is food trucks. So if you'd like to come up, and
I would love to.
thank you for waiting around for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, it's a great time to talk about food trucks, because I'm starving. My name is Jess Anderson. My address is 1703 Deeds Road in Granville. I'm your neighbor. I'm here representing my husband and I's business, Free Range Hog Pit, as well as Anderson Farms. We applied for a permit for a food truck, and I misunderstood the ordinance. I thought we were allowed to operate 3 days a week, and it is 3 days a month. I'm asking that you change the ordinance so that we can operate 4 days a week, every week. This gives us the opportunity to hire full-time workers, pay them a livable wage. Honestly, if I hired workers that only work 3 days a month, you probably wouldn't want them here. I don't like to work with temporary people. And we like to participate in all as we lead, so we would love to partner with them. And, you know, be a part of the community. And one of the bigger things I'd like to mention is we do have a farm 15 miles down the road. My husband and I have worked on raising a hog specific to barbecue for a whole hog sandwich, and we would like to serve that in Licking County. So please consider it and give us an opportunity to do that.
Can I ask you a question?
You may.
I'm a big fan of food trucks. I love food trucks.
Okay.
The ordinance was put in place to protect our business owners that made the investment into the brick and mortar. What are your plans in the future with your business in this area?
So the plans in the future, we focus on one location at a time. We don't move around. We're not transient. We stay in one spot and partner with our neighbors. And, you know, the permit we have is specific to that address. As far as other locations, is that what you're asking?
Would Johnstown ever be a location where you'd want to build a brick and mortar store? Does how your food truck do here impact future decisions like that?
So our business model is food truck. We are unusual. A lot of people who get food trucks, their end goal is to have a brick and mortar, and we do operate 2 brick and mortars. One is in Granville, but it's fine dining, specific to you know, my husband's chefiness and not being able to do everything he'd like to do in a food truck.
Okay.
The reason we've expanded our food truck business is because of the attention we've gotten nationally. The lines got longer. We have 2 food trucks in Columbus, 1 in Powell, and we operate a drive-through in Westerville on the Delaware County side. And then we've always wanted to operate in Licking County, but you had barbecue here previously. Now you don't. And the same thing in Granville. They recently became barbecue deficient. So that's why we moved into there. So we will always be a food truck. But even our first weekend here, people traveling out of state came to look for us because we're on national lists and barbecue crawls. So I know it's only a barbecue truck, and it might not be as important in some people's eyes as a brick and mortar, but I think we're a big deal.
What?
I have one real quick.
Okay.
So your one that's in Powell is located at what brewery?
Nocterra.
Inside their property?
Correct.
Thank you.
What kind of impact, besides feeding us and giving us good food, what can you give back to the community if we give you this? Like, what can you do for the community? Like a brick and mortar, the taxes, everything else that involves that. But what can you as a food truck owner do for our community?
Well, we pay a lot in rent. We're just, the amount of rent I pay, I could be inside of Mr. Henson's building. We participate with the schools, like we are a part of the community. So it depends on the opportunities that are open to us and come to us. It's not just a money grab for the weekend. We're here to stay.
Okay.
I have a few.
Okay, go ahead.
So, what are your plans for, if you're open 4 days a week, your hours of operation?
Our hours of operation are Thursday through Sunday, noon to 8.
Noon to 8. And currently in the places that you do have food trucks on a semi-permanent basis, what activities do you do within the community? You had just said you'd like to be part of the community. What do you currently do in those locations with that community?
Yes. So we work, we are also on the land grants property in Franklinton, and we are involved in all their festivals they have every weekend. Powell, we've only been there for a year. I believe we work with Westerville City Schools as well as the police department there. We've been involved.
What do you do for them? Like, what are your contributions to?
I'll have to check with
Okay.
our charity, but I can get a list for you.
That'd be great. That's great. Thank you.
I was on the board, Sharon, Sean, you were all here at the time. And I think the major concern was we needed to protect the businesses that invested in Johnstown. Many things have changed from, 14, 13 to today. The other concern that comes is that it's not allowing your food truck here. It's allowing all food trucks here. And my concern is that there's gonna be a lot of activity, there's gonna be a lot of interest, there's gonna be a lot of growth. And we want people to invest and put roots down. And I appreciate your honesty, because every answer was, even when it wasn't to your favor potentially on what the question was, you were being honest, and I appreciate that. I really do. I just think this council really has to review and consider what we open up to all, because you may run your business a certain way, but the next food truck that swings in here and parks in front of AutoZone and does whatever they want, we just really have got to be careful that we're protecting the integrity of the people that are here and anyone that may come.
So we have worked with the city of Columbus because things have changed dramatically in the 12 years that we've been operating as a food truck. And there are a lot of fail-safes you can put into the permitting process
Yes.
that will weed out a lot of that. As a suggestion.
Okay.
I agree with Bob, though. We want to protect our restaurants here. Have we ever reached out to the restaurants and asked them what their thoughts are on food trucks? I would like to know.
I imagine we did back in.
Did we?
14,
I don't
Well, I
remember.
don't think we needed to back then.
I was just
It
gonna say,
people-
who was here?
Food trucks were parking,
Yeah.
and it was, the phone calls were constant,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and I could give you some background if you want. I did talk to Ben Lee, who was on council. 2019 was when this actual ordinance was passed that allowed for food trucks, but under these 3-day.
Oh, I was talking, I think we said no
Yeah.
food trucks when I
We
was
said
here.
none.
Yeah.
In
None,
2019,
yes.
they passed a
Okay.
provision that allowed
Right.
for some 3 days a month. And I did talk to Ben, and he said that from the information that he gave me, collectively with Ms. Hollis, who had a food truck operation and now obviously has a brick and mortar, he worked with her pretty collaboratively on drafting what is now in the ordinance. So as far as participation that you mentioned, it sounds like there was a lot of participation with the current businesses that exist, especially one that also had this same type of business in place prior to their brick and mortar situation. So I think that conversation has been had for whatever that's worth.
I do think we need to revisit it, though. 3 days a month is none. And who's gonna police how many days someone's here and operating and things, so I think it's something we definitely need to look at. Food trucks are becoming more and more of a consistent business model, and I see that it makes sense.
And I think the other thing with that is with the construction that's coming, we don't have the food services here to.
Depends on who runs that job site. I'd be careful with that statement.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Okay. Go down there to the Facebook job site. They feed themselves. So
Gotcha.
they have 2 full kitchens.
Yep, they do. Most of them do. Like,
They want to go out to
Amgen-
eat. It's on them.
Yeah, Amgen, like all of those will have their own kitchen in there.
Amgen has their own kitchen.
Yep,
as
they'll
well.
have their own kitchen. all
I
of
don't
them
want to
will.
discourage you or encourage you, but I think that the request is legitimate and it needs to be reviewed. We need to have a better answer for folks that want to come and get involved and get engaged. Because 3 days a month is almost a don't bother.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we chose the location we're at, is because there's not enough food for the traffic, in my opinion.
So the question is, does this go back to a committee, or do we review this ourselves, or?
It was in safety and service, and we didn't touch on it tonight. But I think that this is a council conversation and not a committee, because I don't think there's a committee that
We don't have a committee for this.
encompasses
type.
this. If anything,
It's
it
not
would
safety and
probably
service.
be around the events committee, because that's probably what the ordinance was designed for, is to bring people in, making assumptions here, for specialty one-off events and not for
I think that
Along-
was the intent, was
a
for
long haul.
specialty.
And that's why I think you see the three days a week, a month, is
For
you're
special
you're gonna,
events.
you're gonna come for
But does the
Fireman's
Does the
Festival.
ordinance allow for additional days with approval? I mean, it's pretty cut and dry,
It's cut-
right?
yeah,
It's-
no.
It is what it is, very cut and dry.
I don't know if we have the information now to really make a decision. I think maybe we should throw it to a committee to hash out some stuff.
I would recommend having Ben Lee probably be a part of that conversation. He was, correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa, I wasn't there, but he was pretty heavy-handed in all those conversations, from background
Right,
to
some background.
where he pulled it from. I think Pickerington, is that where he pulled it from? Okay, so, yeah, I would definitely pick his brain, because he's gonna have a lot of background information as far as what the dialogue was with that existing council, the reasoning, the justification. There's no need for you guys to go collectively try to get research if he's already done the work for you. So, maybe invite him
Yeah.
to be a part of that conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for such a nice
You know what
presentation.
you could do? Could you write down what you would like?
Yeah.
And then we'd have something to compare what it is, what you want, and where the gaps are. So you would like to operate 4 days a week, just formalize it so it's consistent, 4 days a week, or I guess even it would come from the notes, 4 days a week from noon to 8 o'clock, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yep, that's it. Yep.
You-
In my one
No need to write
spot.
anything down.
No, yeah,
Oh.
no moving around, just so I can work with those.
Something I think we are gonna look at is location, who's benefiting from it. You know, because obviously you're paying rent to someone that owns the property and what that looks like. We've gotta,
Well, you get, if it's a permanent location, again, these are things that we're gonna have to bring up, is you get into parking.
yes. 'cause
Is
it
there
cuts- it
designated
cuts-
parking? Is there not designated parking? There's the whole myriad of
Trash
questions.
receptacles.
Yeah,
Who's
trash.
responsible? Is it the property owner? Is it the business? Do they contract that out? The city's gotta fix any problem, so you know, we gotta.
Payroll taxes, thing like that.
There's so much more to it than just selling sandwiches.
We put all that in our agreements and our contracts ahead of time, because
Yeah, if this was more of a conversation where it was, again, Terry Hens's property is a little bit different, but if it was,
yeah, I think we're good on
hey, right, yeah, well, he owns half the lot, so.
Right.
Depends on what other businesses go in there, right? The golf one has to have so many parking spots if that business does in fact come. But if this was like, again, like the Nocterra situation where it's like they own the property and you're parking on it, it's a permanent lease agreement that you can look at where it's enclosed. I've been there before, that's how I know about it. It's a fence in, right? Like, so if it's a situation like that, I think that the conversation is a little different, because it's almost like being a permanent space, because they do have their own seating and their own parking, and there's
I've been
more, right? And that's why I
But
asked.
that's the only one, well,
Franklinton.
We're gonna have to watch
Land
it.
grant.
The one I remember is
yeah.
truck pulled into AutoZone, parked there.
No.
I said,
Yeah.
hey, you guys can't be here. They said, we got a permit. I said, we don't have permits. And then they told me that AutoZone, or maybe it was Advance, I don't know. I think it was Advance, said, well, they said it was okay. And I was like, you guys can't say this is okay. So,
I did have a suggestion. I shouldn't suggest this because it's more work for me. So for a Columbus permit, you have to have a peddler's license, and part of that process is getting your fingerprints,
Yeah, they do the BCI background check.
just for safety reasons.
But you see a food truck depot like Delaware come in and then non-issue.
that?
So we just need a food truck depot like Delaware.
Yeah, I'd said that, yeah.
It's another
Have somewhere-
conversation for another day.
Have somewhere in a park.
We will figure something out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely, thank you.
Any other business anyone have on Sharon's side of the table? Mr. Charlie's side.
I would like to have an executive session to discuss employment, employees, village employees, or city employees with no business to follow. It'll be brief. Sean, Rusty, Jack, and Teresa are all welcome, at least for the first part.
Are we procedurally allowed to have an
Council
executive session?
is, you would need to waive your own rules of order, which
Yes.
say that 24-hour notice needs to be given to council
Oh,
members.
okay, then we can do it on the next one.
Well, you can do it, you just have
You
to
do
waive.
it. It's just a council.
It's a
just
council
Council rules of
procedure.
order.
Alright.
It's a.
Then I request we waive the council rules of order to have this brief executive
I'll
session.
second.
I want to clarify the reason. You said it was,
It was to discuss employment of existing village employees and potential future ones. Be private matters associated with someone that's employed by the village, or city, I keep saying city,
City.
I know, it's village for so
Do you
long.
want to check, Teresa, just to make sure?
yeah, I mean, if it's under, of course, I left that on my desk because we were looking.
You want to go grab it?
If
I just
it's
wanna make sure
into
we're-
That's fine,
consideration-
no, I'm gonna do it right, and it's not critical, it's just something I wanna,
Under to consider the
conversate
employment
about.
of a public employee.
a public
Yes.
employee, there you
There you
go.
go.
That is a permitted reason.
I will get my terminology
That's
better.
right.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
It was Bob and who was second?
Sean, John.
Okay.
To waive.
This is
To waive. This is to waive, because we have to waive it first.
You have to waive the council rules of order. Are all in favor of that? Let's just do an all in favor for that.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Before we make the motion to go to executive session, then, I had one item for other business. Something Teresa brought up to me, and I thought it was a great idea. Currently, we do an invocation at every session. It is bounced between me and Ms. Hendren currently. Teresa made a suggestion that we reach out to churches in our city and local pastors and see if they would be interested in providing this, or doing this with us, and building a relationship with them. And we can rotate between some different people who'd be interested in doing it. And before I reached out to him, I wanted to see if council was
That's a
okay with
great
it.
idea. Good idea.
You guys good with it?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. That was a great Teresa idea, so that's all I had.
And I got your ordinance, or your motion, if you want to read, and that way you have it exactly.
Read it.
I gotta see it.
Are you suggesting?
Turn around, it's right there.
Good.
So just a quick note for executive session. There has to be a motion and you have to state the exact purpose. And it has to be one of,
I got it up on the board. If this is the
Yeah.
one that you're asking to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation or charges, complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, regulator, individual, unless employee, officer, licensee, or regulated individual request a public hearing by division of
it
section.
doesn't have to be all that.
Doesn't have to be all that,
I
but
would like to make a motion to go into executive session with no business to follow for the specific purpose of discussing personnel-related matters governed by division G1 of section 121.
I can get you all a shorter version of that, but
Okay.
it would be to consider the employment of a public employee.
I would like to make a motion to go into executive session with no business to follow to discuss the employment of a public employee.
I'll second.
Good job.
Good job.
Okay, and then there has to be a roll call to enter executive session.
Has to be
Charlie
right.
Campbell,
Oh,
Nicole Shook,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
John Barnard,
Yes.
John Merriman,
Yes.
Brian Green,
Yes.
Sharon Hendrick.
Yes.
That's it. We'll do it here. We're not gonna do anything after.
Thank you guys for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Run to the bathroom.